You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Bingham. Thank you for being here. Whatever platform you are watching or listening on, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts. Everywhere you get your podcasts, we are there. Whichever of those you're on, listening or watching, please subscribe. You guys are awesome. Merry Christmas. I've got the Santa hat on. Going to do the whole show with this on. I've got the Believe shirt. Okay. Believe in Santa. Merry Christmas to all of you. We've had a great week this last week since the last podcast. Again, every Monday is going to be the routine. I really like it. Hopefully you guys do too. Please subscribe. Please share it with your friends. Got to start with this. BYU lost the whatever it was called bowl to the whatever it was called team. They literally have a dragon as their mascot. So the UAB Blazers, that's the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And BYU loses 31-28. And we luckily BYU gets what's being dubbed, and I didn't make this up, just kidding, I did. But BYU gets what's being dubbed as the Utah excuse for the loss, the Utah excuse, right? Because the Utes hypothetically beat BYU this year because they didn't have their regular starting quarterback, or their now starting quarterback, who at the time was dubbed by the head coach, Kyle Whittingham, as the second string guy. He's now the starter. They've obviously improved a lot since then. And so hypothetically, Utah actually beat BYU this year. I don't know if you guys knew that, but hypothetically, Utah really should be undefeated national champs, hypothetically speaking. So BYU luckily gets the hypothetical win against UAB in the bowl game. Oh, this is going to make a lot of people mad. I'm excited. BYU gets the hypothetical win because of the Utah excuse. That's an official term. And that excuse is that we didn't have our starting quarterback. Jaron Hall was out with an injury, still lingering from weeks earlier against USC. So Baylor Romney gets the start, and BYU ends up losing the game 31-28. They did actually have kind of a phantom. This was a close call. This was a very close call. I watched it 100 times, but the fumble call on Nakua, where he catches it, goes to run, and all of a sudden the ball pops free. I don't know. That was so close. In the NFL, that was for sure just an incomplete pass. In college, I don't know. It was very, very close. But luckily, we didn't have our starting quarterback, so we actually won the game. Congratulations to BYU on another hypothetical win to go with Utah's hypothetical win over BYU. It's a great, great year in college football for the state of Utah. All sorts of hypothetical wins. It's really, really good. So, no, in all seriousness, BYU loses. Really a bummer. I mean, it's a meaningless game. We all knew it was. It was the freaking the Radiance? Yeah, the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. Want to make sure the sponsor gets in there. Speaking of sponsors, check out Tripio, tripioapp.com. Going to be released soon. But anyway, BYU loses the game. Real bummer. But it didn't matter, honestly. It didn't matter. We had freaking Kalani Sitake flying to Oregon between the end of the regular season and the bowl game, looking at the coaching job up in Oregon. It's the Independence Bowl. It's meaningless. It's for nothing. Obviously, BYU wishes they would have won. Obviously, BYU fans wish they would have won. And it would have pushed them up the rankings. And if Utah does lose, like I mentioned in previous podcasts, they would go down the rankings, and then BYU would have been more justified at that point. But now, you lose this game to UAB with or without your starting quarterback, and it's kind of like, see, we knew you weren't that good. That's what everybody gets to say. But again, the Utah excuse, didn't have our quarterback, therefore it doesn't count. Okay, moving on. That's all about BYU football. Great season. Finished the season 10-3. Great year. Kalani Sitake stays, signs a big extension. Hopefully he's in Utah for years to come, with the Cougars. And, we'll see if they can build something as they move into the Big 12. Should be exciting. So, okay, moving on. And again, I want to say one more thing about this. That's kind of my thing about these bowl games I've mentioned, and it's hard to take me serious in this Santa hat, I realize. But that's the thing with these bowl games I've mentioned. They're so far removed from the regular season that coaches are like leaving frequently. They're quitting their jobs. They're moving to different schools. even from really big programs like Oklahoma, leaves for USC, Lincoln Riley. And they barely missed the playoffs, and he leaves. So there's a lot of things I don't love about the college football postseason. There's so much potential there, and I think they're really falling short. But this game, we had BYU's head coach literally interviewing and entertaining jobs elsewhere instead of prepping for a bowl game. Why? Because it's like, it's 3 weeks away, it's 4 weeks away, and honestly, I just don't care about that game. It has zero impact on anything we do. It doesn't mean anything long term. It's not an important bowl. They want their bowl victories, but even that's dying off. It's all about championships, and so I think there's a lot could be fixed. But anyway, okay, moving on. Big thing I want to focus on today is the Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers, they lose again last night to the Bulls, and they're now 16-15 on the year, barely above 500, just holding their head above water, trying to stay alive. And all I'm hearing from everybody, including some of my close friends who are Lakers fans, is that it's Russell Westbrook's fault, right? It's Russell Westbrook's fault because nothing's ever been LeBron's fault. He's very similar to the Utes. Hypothetically, he's 10-0 in the finals. Hypothetically, he's MVP 18 times. Hypothetically, he's never lost a game. And hypothetically, he's the greatest player of all time. Unfortunately, in reality, none of those things are true. LeBron has lost more finals than he has won. He's 4-6. Impressive that he's been to 10. Don't get me into that though right now. The East was real tough a lot of those years, let me tell you. Anyway, he's 4-6 in the finals, losing record. And it's never his fault. His shortcomings are never his fault. It's always somebody else's. Anytime he fails, somebody else is to blame. And right now it's Russell Westbrook. Well, guess what? LeBron James really wanted Russell Westbrook. He pushed hard to get Russell Westbrook. And I get it. LeBron's numbers, they kind of stay pretty solid, right? His numbers stay MVP level, right? And so when you see other guys' numbers, not quite there, the blame is, it's easy to point blame. But I've done a podcast before, and I'm going to dive into it a little bit with some old numbers I have, some old stats. Then I'm going to compare Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook, and who is more to blame? Is it Anthony Davis or is it Russell Westbrook? Because one of them, you do look at LeBron's numbers, to LeBron's credit, I should say, and in his defense, his numbers are there. He's playing really, really well. Anthony Davis can't stay healthy. His numbers are really, really down. I personally think that he is the most to blame for the Lakers' shortcomings, more than Russell Westbrook, more than LeBron James. I think it's Anthony Davis. But just getting back real quick to the fact that LeBron is never at fault. It's never his problem. His failures are never his problem. They're always somebody else's. He always makes others better, right? That's what we always hear. LeBron makes others better. Everybody's better with LeBron James. Well, except all of his teammates that he blames for when he loses. Apparently, it doesn't apply to them. So everybody gets better when they play with LeBron, except for when they lose, then they played worse, and it wasn't his fault. It was their fault, and it's in spite of their shortcomings that he wins anything at all. Do you see what I'm getting at? Everyone wants to have their cake and eat it too when it comes to LeBron James because they're trying so hard to just do these mental gymnastics to pretend that he's better than Michael Jordan, and it's not even close. So did you know that 7 times, I've mentioned this before, but to those that haven't, that have not been longtime listeners, that have just joined in the last few months, I haven't talked about it much in the last few months. Did you know that LeBron James 7 different times, has had 2 teammates who were all-stars the same season that he was an all-star, meaning 3 total players on his team, including himself, were all-stars in the same season 7 different times. Do you know how many times Michael Jordan had that same thing happen with his teams? 0. Zilch. Nada. None. 0 times Michael Jordan had 2 all-star teammates the same season in which he was an all-star. It never happened, and he was an all-star every year. So he never had it. I get it. He had great role players around him. Rodman was a fantastic player, Hall of Fame player, was never an all-star with the Bulls. Horace Grant was not an all-star in any season in which Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were an all-star. So LeBron's had it 7 times. Jordan's had it 0 times. And another stat here. Jordan won 2 finals with 0 All-Star teammates, not even Scottie Pippen. In 1991 and in 1998, the only All-Star that the Chicago Bulls had was Michael Jordan. In both of those seasons, they won the finals, and Jordan was finals MVP. LeBron, on the other hand, has lost multiple finals with 2 All-Star teammates. Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. Do you see what I'm getting at here? It's always somebody else's fault, yet he doesn't have help, but then he's got these like super teams. People can't figure it out. They're just trying so hard to justify his failures when the reality is he's failing. LeBron James is falling short. Why do these guys play worse? Because they don't play better. I went and got some stats. So these are some stats of some guys that you know really well. Kevin Love will go first. In Minnesota, before he was traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, he averaged 26.1 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, 4.4 assists. His first season with LeBron, the guy who makes everybody better, his points per game dropped by 10 from 26 to 16. His rebounds per game dropped from 12.5 to 9.5, 9.7. His assists per game dropped from 4.5 to 4.4 to 2.2, cut in half. So I get that there's only one basketball, and if you're not the best scorer and you're joining Kyrie Irving, you're joining LeBron James, you're probably going to get fewer points per game. That's expected. A 10-point per game drop, that seems extreme. A 3 rebound per game drop, when you'd think that would maybe increase even. You're now with these better players. They need the ball more. You're going to be in a different role. Okay, I'm not going to score as much. Let's get more rebounds, more assists. Nope, those went down as well. So that's Kevin Love. Chris Bosh in Toronto with the Raptors before LeBron James with the Heat. 24 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists per game. His first season with LeBron in Miami, 6 fewer points per game, 2.5 fewer rebounds per game, and half an assist less. So again, all 3 categories, lower, lower, lower. But again, LeBron makes everybody better. Everybody gets better with LeBron. Dwayne Wade, before LeBron, 26.6 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 6.5 assists. With LeBron, 4.5 points less per game, 2 rebounds less per game, 2 assists less per game. Again, every category lower, lower, lower. So for a guy that makes everybody better, they sure don't show it in any statistical category, any of them. Yeah, and you're going to say, oh, but Kevin Love never won a title before LeBron, and Dwayne Wade never won a title. Actually, Dwayne Wade did win a title before LeBron. LeBron didn't win a title before Dwayne Wade. Chris Bosh, though, didn't win a title. But guess what? They didn't just add LeBron. Chris Bosh didn't just get LeBron James. He got LeBron James and NBA champion Dwayne Wade. Kevin Love didn't just get LeBron James. He got Kyrie Irving as well. So it's not just LeBron James. So then I looked at some other players, Rodney Hood and Jordan Clarkson, who at the time when I first did this podcast, it was like 4 years ago when LeBron went back to Cleveland. And I looked at Rodney Hood because Rodney Hood was a guy who had played with the Jazz and was actually pretty good with the Jazz. They trade him to Cleveland. Again, with LeBron, he's going to get better. He's only going to get better with LeBron. Man, if he was good with the Jazz, just wait till you see this guy with LeBron, right? With Utah, Rodney Hood averaged 16.8 points per game, so nearly 17 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.8 steals, okay? Goes to Cleveland with LeBron, and again, in all 4 of those statistical categories, points, assists, rebounds, steals, all 4 of them lower across the board. Points per game was 6 lower, from 6.8 to 10.8. Fewer rebounds, fewer assists, fewer steals, fewer points. I don't see where people are saying how much better he makes everybody. Like, how are they better? Because their team was better? Because they were now on a better team? Because LeBron James is really good? Does that make them better players individually? There's nothing that shows me that LeBron makes people better. George Hill was another guy that was with Utah and then went and played with LeBron in Cleveland. In Utah, George Hill averaged 16.9 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, 4.2 assists. Goes to Cleveland, joins LeBron. 7.5 points less. That's nearly cut in half, from 16.9 down to 9.4. 3.4 rebounds down to 2.7. That's like a 30% drop. 4.2 assists down to 2.8. That's also like a 40% drop, something like that. So again, lower in each statistical category. I don't see the only common thread I see here with LeBron's teammates is that they actually all get worse. Jordan Clarkson, we know how valuable and great he is for the Jazz right now. At the time in LA without LeBron, and then he went and joined LeBron in Cleveland. But at the time in LA without LeBron, he was on pace to be what we're seeing in Utah right now. 14.5 points per game, 3 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Goes to the Cavs, lower in points by 2 points per game, lower in rebounds by 30%, lower in assists by 50%. So he dropped in every statistical category. Goes to the Jazz, boom, they skyrocket back up. 6th man of the year, coming off the bench, 20 points. The guy's the man. But again, with LeBron, everybody's better. No, they're not. That's like the Utes' hypothetical win over the Cougars this year, right? So it's just not real. It didn't happen. They all got worse. So that's the first thing I want to address here. The Lakers stink right now, and everyone's going to point the finger at somebody else. It's like that Spider-Man meme. They're all going to point at each other, right? Like, whose fault is it? It's Anthony Davis. It's LeBron James. No, nobody's going to point at LeBron. Not even Anthony Davis or Russell Westbrook would dare do that. They're going to point at each other, and LeBron's going to be pointing at both of them. As long as his legacy is just squeaky clean, I'm the man. I should have been MVP. I can't get any help. Really? Because Russell Westbrook's a Hall of Fame player. Anthony Davis is a Hall of Fame player. Both of them are still in their athletic prime. Why do you guys suck so bad? Beats me. Anthony Davis, before the season before he came to the Lakers to join LeBron, 26.1 points per game, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 2.5 blocks. Since coming to LA, he has 24 points per game. That's 2 fewer. 9 rebounds. That's a 25% drop. 3.1 assists. That's like a 20% drop. 2.1 blocks. That's like a small 15% drop. So again, in each statistical category, lower, lower, lower. Anthony Davis before LeBron, with LeBron. He did get the one bubble title. That was a great bubble title. They were the best team in the bubble that year. Russell Westbrook, everyone's pointing the finger at him, but Russell Westbrook, he's trying to adapt his game, right? I mean, we know what he did once Kevin Durant left. This guy was Mr. Triple-Double. 4 different seasons he's averaged a triple-double. It's unheard of kind of stuff. So I went back and looked at the stats. What was Westbrook doing with KD? And Westbrook's really not playing horribly this year. The turnovers, I can't defend his turnovers. Westbrook's turnovers are horrendous. They're embarrassing. They're junior high level type turnovers, like just stupid decisions where you just are really, truly dumbfounded at what he's even looking at on the floor sometimes. So aside from his 4.5 turnovers per game, which is really bad, but it's not like outrageously horrendous. It's really bad though. I'd give him a D- in that category. Not quite a fail, but a D-. But he's averaging 19.5 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 8.3 assists. He's actually shooting 45.3% from the field, which is higher than his career average. He's shooting slightly higher from 3 than his career average, 31.5 compared to 30.5, so a percent better. He's not a three-point shooter. We know that. He's only taken 3.8 per game this year. And that's just not horrible. If Westbrook is wide open from 3, he should take it. He's capable of making a wide open 3-point shot. He's not capable of making any sort of step back or difficult or contested 3-point shot or a deep 3-point shot. Those should not be taken. Those are bad shots. He does do that occasionally, and that would fall in the category with the turnovers as unacceptable and embarrassing and stupid. But Westbrook is not playing poorly. I mean, those are good numbers. 20 points per game, 8.5 assists, and nearly 8 rebounds. What more do you want from a guy who's you've already determined he's your number 3 option? Those are as good a numbers you're going to find at a number 3 option in the history of the league, maybe. Okay? I mean, those are fantastic numbers. I mean, just going back to what we were saying, Chris Bosh as the number 3 option was averaging 18.7. Kevin Love as the number 3 option with LeBron was averaging 16.4. So for Russell Westbrook to be averaging 20, that's pretty good. You know, and he's played 31 games. So to me, it's like everyone wants to point the finger. The problem is chemistry, and the problem is playing with LeBron is difficult. He's had fantastic lineups and fantastic teammates. He also is so demanding and such a diva that he dictates who's on his team. The GM doesn't get to do that. I bet you the coach doesn't even have a huge say in the lineup, in the rotation. I'm sure LeBron has an equal say in all of that as the GM and the coach. He's a horrible GM. He's a horrible coach. He's just a fantastic player, but he's a bit of a diva. People are scared to upset him and have the finger pointed at them. And to me, LeBron is a huge part of the problem, not because of his play, but because of his attitude. It's always somebody else's fault. He's pointing, he's upset, he's screaming, he's got his minions out there making sure that he's not the one saying that they're not good enough, but they're the ones saying that his teammates aren't good enough. And he doesn't come to their defense. You never hear him step up and say, hey, you know what? Russell Westbrook's an all-star. Anthony Davis is an all-star. So to me, LeBron is a huge part of the problem. Huge part of the problem. After that, though, and really this season, I would say before that, he's just a huge part. The biggest part of the problem for the Lakers, though, to me, is chemistry. It's not that any one individual player isn't good enough. It's just that they don't fit well together. They're just not a good. It's like a puzzle that just doesn't quite fit, right? And LeBron is the GM that orchestrated that, so you can blame him. But after that, it's Anthony Davis. This guy is supposed to be a top 5 player in the league. I don't think he's even a top 15 player in the league right now. He's not playing like it at all. And so, to me, you have to put the blame on Anthony Davis. He's frequently hurt. He's hurt again now. You know, Charles Barkley named him street clothes. And it's funny and it's unfortunate because I like Anthony Davis and he is a super talented player. But he's not stepping up. I mean, Anthony Davis is averaging, last year was really bad, 21.8 points per game. This year, just 23. He's only had a couple of seasons lower than that. And so he's averaging 9.9 rebounds, which isn't horrible, but it's not great. This is a guy that was averaging 12 and 11 and 12 before coming to LA. But the problem is the game's changed, but LeBron just makes everybody get out of the lane, get around the three-point line so that he can penetrate. So people have to adapt their game to LeBron. And they don't always find the right pieces to adapt to. That first season, it looked pretty good with him and Anthony Davis. But that bubble championship, I'm sorry, there's just a massive, massive asterisk next to that thing. There was a longer break in the season than there is typically an off season. That's a fact. The break from when COVID started to when the season picked back up in the bubble, that was a longer break than LeBron typically gets from the end of the finals to the start of the regular season. So it's like a whole new season. And now they're down in an AAU tournament in Orlando at freaking Disney World in like convention centers playing basketball with no fans. I mean, that was the lamest, dumbest championship in the history of the NBA by far. By far. I mean, LeBron won the championship that year. The one that was offered, he won it. I get it. And I'm not taking that away from him. What I am taking away, though, is that's just not a regular championship. It was a stupid championship. And to me, it barely counts as anything. It was an AAU tournament. No fans, no away games, no travel. Are you kidding me? I mean, to me, that just takes so much of the pressure off. So, and I know, here I am getting all hot in a Santa hat. It's kind of weird, but... So Anthony Davis, though, to me, he has to step up. Shaq's been calling him out. Other guys have been calling him out. So I like Russell Westbrook. I will agree he's not the best fit for the Lakers. They needed to go get three-point shooters. That's one of his biggest weaknesses. Turnovers and three-point shooting are Russell Westbrook's biggest weaknesses. He's actually really good at everything else. He's a really good scorer. He's a really good rebounder. He's good at setting guys up for assists. Again, he does get some boneheaded turnovers, but you can't average a triple-double and be bad at assists or bad at rebounds. It's just not possible, especially when your team's making the playoffs year after year while you're doing that. So it's not like they were just padding his stats for those that accuse him of that. His teams were still making the playoffs. He was dragging teams that sucked to the playoffs. Russell Westbrook was. So to me, the chemistry is off. That's the number one problem. The number two problem, and the chemistry is largely due to LeBron James. The number two problem is Anthony Davis not stepping up. And then you could say Russell Westbrook's, not being a fit, turnovers, poor shooting, whatever. But I don't see the Lakers doing much this year unless they change things. You might see another head coach if LeBron's fired. What does that say about a guy when he can't keep a head coach? I mean, you don't think the top coaches would love to coach LeBron, but he's not coachable. He's not coachable. He just knows better. He's that guy, you can't teach him anything. He already knows. He already knows everything. He doesn't want to learn from you. He just wants a guy that's just going to be there and that he can kind of be as like a puppet. And why not allow yourself to have a coach like a Phil Jackson was for Kobe and MJ, right? LeBron doesn't want that, though. He wants to control too much. And so no coaches want to coach him. Or I should say, he doesn't want real coaches to coach him because he wants puppet coaches. And so I think that's a huge problem in LeBron's career. But ironically, this podcast was going to be more about Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook, but it's turned into this. So because this is reality. This is reality. This is not like the Utes phantom win over the Cougars this year. This is reality. Okay, last thing I want to mention before signing off. Tom Brady got shut out yesterday for the first time since 2006. Loses 9-0 to the Saints. Taysom Hill, BYU guy, gets the win over Tom Brady. 9-0. What the heck happened there? 9-0. I watched a little bit of the game. I had family over for a Christmas party at my house, so I was checking it out with my nephews in the background and stuff, and I did catch the end of it, but that was very surprising. 9-0. That was just very bizarre. Obviously, Mike Evans goes out with injury. Chris Godwin goes out with injury. Leonard Fournette goes out with injury. That doesn't help any. But still, 0 points. Brady had a fumble in the red zone, threw a pick on the last drive when they were kind of looking like maybe they could figure something out to get some points after it was 9-0 after a Saints field goal. There's still like 5 minutes left. Still like a glimmer of hope, and throws a pick. So Brady did not play well. This all comes the week that I dubbed him the MVP of the league, right? But guess what? He's still the MVP of the league. He still leads the league in passing yards. He still leads the league in passing touchdowns. He still has one of the best records in the league at 10-4. It's the second best record in the league. So there's no reason for him to not be MVP just because of one bad game. That was a very bad game. Very bad game. 2 turnovers, gets shut out. I mean, that's one of the worst games that Brady's had in many, many years. But again, still leads the league in passing yards, still leads the league in touchdowns. He actually leads over Aaron Rodgers, who many are saying is the MVP. Aaron Rodgers sat out one game because of COVID stuff. Remember when it turned out he wasn't vaccinated. So he has one less game played than Brady does, but he's 900 yards away from Tom Brady in passing yards on the season. So unless you think Aaron Rodgers was going to throw for 1,000 yards in that game that he sat out, that argument is dead. He's 6 touchdowns behind Tom Brady. So unless you think he was going to throw for 6 touchdowns and 1,000 yards, he's still behind Tom Brady in both of those categories. And they're only one game back. It's 11-3 to 10-4. So the record part is a moot point because when it comes to MVP, your team has to be really good. They don't have to be number 1 seed. That's not how it works. And so if your team makes the playoffs, if you're top 2, 3 seed, usually those top 6 teams in the league, 3 from the AFC, 3 from the NFC, if you're one of those top 6, that's where, it's kind of like all the same when it comes to MVP voting. Then you go down to individual play from there. They start to disqualify you a little bit if your team barely squeaks into the playoffs or doesn't make it at all. It doesn't really matter how good you were. It didn't equate to wins enough, right? But Brady's there. He's second in the entire league as far as record goes. They've got an easy schedule down the stretch. They have at Panthers, at Jets, then Panthers at home. So they're going to go 3-0. They're going to finish 13-4 in the first ever 17-game regular season. And that's pretty darn good. They may be the 1 seed, likely the 2, because the Packers have Browns, Vikings, and then at Lions. So they have a slightly more difficult schedule than the Buccaneers do down the stretch. I still think, though, that they have a very good shot at going 3-0 as well, which would put them at 14-3, finishing 1 game ahead of the Bucs. The Cowboys and the Cardinals are also 10-4, tied with the Buccaneers in record. And the Cowboys have Washington, Cardinals, and then at Eagles. So I think they're going to drop at least one of those. Cardinals, who are, by the way, are losers of 2 straight, including the Lions yesterday. Ouch. The Cardinals lost to the Lions yesterday. What has happened to the Cardinals? This is very bizarre. DeAndre Hopkins has been out. Very bizarre stuff. You want to see them get back on track. But they have Colts, difficult game. At Cowboys, difficult game. Seahawks, difficult game. I think they lose at least one of those, maybe 2. So you're going to see Packers and Bucs finish 1-2 in the NFC, and it's just a matter of who finishes 1 and who finishes 2. Likely the Packers finish 1, Buccaneers 2. But to me, Tom Brady is still the MVP. BYU still beat Utah this year. That is all the time I have for today. I am out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out STBSportsTake.com. Simply the best in sports.
'Cause we are warriors.